Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining me. My name is Tova from tovapain.com. I'm a certified life coach and meditation facilitator. So today's video, I am talking about fear. So fear impacts all of us, and it can impact us to varying degrees for various reasons. So you could be afraid to quit your job. You might be afraid to leave your relationship. You might be afraid to, these days with COVID, depending on where you live and what the rules and regulations are, you might be afraid to leave the house. And so there's so many different things that can make us afraid. So take a moment, you can even put the video on pause and ask yourself, is there something in your life where fear is really taking control? Is there something that you're afraid of that you'd like to work on? So take a moment. All right, so whatever it is that you're afraid of, ask yourself, is this something that I need to be afraid of? You know, some people will say, all fear, just squash it, just ignore it, override it. No way. Fear exists for a reason. Fear can be our intuition. And what I mean by this is that, let's say you're walking down in the evening, a dark street, and you get a little bit afraid all of a sudden. Like you were walking 5 blocks in the dark just fine, but all of a sudden you feel afraid, right? That's your instinct. And if your instinct is like, just cross the road, even though you can't really see 5 blocks ahead of you, just cross the road right now. And maybe then you'll feel this instinct to swing to left and then go back and turn to right. Right? So that's the type of fear that is like, you get focused, it's instinctual, and it helps you take action in a very specific direction. Then there's other fears where, let's say you're afraid to move. Let's say you're afraid to move because you're very comfortable where you are, even though it's not your ideal. And you're afraid about, well, what about the future? And what about, will you be able to afford another place? And, you can get into this big story full of fear. And that's the kind of fear that can just leave you in inaction, where there's no biological benefit for the fear. So first of all, with fear, ask yourself, is this fear helping you take action? Is this fear helping you be laser focused and use your instinct to actually do something? Because that is what the gift of fear does for you, okay? But if fear is not providing that, then high chances you're dealing with what could be considered an irrational fear. And if you're like most of us, we have these irrational fears. And irrational fears can be summed up by this amazing quote I read the other day. And this is by Dr. Joseph Murphy, who goes, fear is a thought in your mind. This means that you are afraid of your own thoughts. So take a moment there, just like set that in. I'll say it again. Fear is a thought in your mind. In your mind. And this means that you're afraid of your thoughts. So if you just take a moment to pause and sit with that, I mean, that right there, that is material for a comedy routine, if you know what I mean. Because it does seem absolutely ludicrous to be afraid of thoughts. It's like, oh, they're just thoughts? Okay. And often it's because we want to know what's ahead. We want to know what's in the future. We want to have it all figured out and controlled. It's that desire for safety. And so it makes sense, and yet it's not in our mind. It's not a fear that is a productive fear. It's not a fear that is helping us flourish and attain our desire. It's a fear that gets us blocked and muddled and confused and just staying where we are, almost feeling frozen, and yet it's frozen from a place of there is no benefit here, okay? So when that fear comes, what are ways that you can help transcend it? What are ways that you can help let go of it? So sometimes just hearing a quote like that is enough to kind of kick your own butt into gear, and sometimes you'll just have to remind yourself of that, like just using a little mantra like, oh, this thing that I'm afraid of, let's say speaking in front of a group, actually isn't so scary. Okay, it's just in my mind that it's scary. It's not actually scary. I can do this. So sometimes just like a mini pep talk is all you need, but other times there might be a little bit more. So ask yourself, with every fear, there is a matching desire. With every fear, there is something that you want to have happen. Okay, so let's say you're afraid. I'll give the public speaking example. Let's say you're afraid to speak, and ask yourself, so what's the matching desire? The matching desire could be you want to lead a workshop, or you want to teach a class, or you want to share a video, right? So that's another way to sort of shift the focus. So instead of being stuck in the fear, shift to what is the desire, and then you can spend your energy there, focusing on the desire. You can use the power of visualization, which is scientifically proven. Athletes use it all the time. Visualize yourself actively doing that thing that you desire. And the more you do that, all of a sudden you'll find yourself having the courage to take the action. And then that fear is almost naturally swept away, because now instead of focusing on the fear and the block, you're now shifted over to the desire and the manifestation. Another thing that you can do to practice is feel the fear in your body. So emotions run through the body. And many fears can have links to other times in our life. So for the sake of the video, I'll use the public speaking example. Let's say you feel the fear, and let's say you feel the fear erupt in your neck and your throat. And then you sit with it. And you just sit with it. So if you sit with it, often physiological sensations will start to pass. And you can even ask your throat, your neck, or just ask the fear in general, what message do you have for me? Is there any information you have for me? And sometimes there might be information, and sometimes there might be a memory that comes up. You might remember this time, let's say in 4th grade, where you did a public presentation in front of your class, and maybe it went horrible, and maybe you realize now, oh my God, somewhere my psyche is afraid because of the past. And like, actually, in this moment, there's no rational reason to still hold on to that fear. So that's another benefit. And take the time to sit with it, to meditate with it, and just ask your body, what information do you have? What is this fear really about? Is there something else I need to be working with and healing and dealing with so that I can move past the fear? And then I just want to bring this back to when actual fear comes. So I'll even share a small little example. As a new driver, I was afraid of this really big highway. And what I was afraid about was the driving. And the reality was the driving went fine. What actually went wrong was I had a really bad breakdown. And I wrote about this in one of my blog posts on my website, but I'll leave that. It was one of the worst breakdowns you can ever have. But when a semi honked at me and my car was already making these weird sounds and feeling weird, I knew the semi was actually helping me. He wasn't just honking at me. He was honking to be like, there's something wrong, get off the road. In that moment, I was not in thinking mind. My fear took action, laser focus on my behalf. An extremely busy highway, somehow I managed to pull off to the side in a very safe space. So, and once I pulled off, I was like, how did that happen? But it's in that moment of fear where fear gets laser focused and takes you into action. And so what I'm saying is that actual fear, right, will help you. And the things that we're afraid of in our mind block us. And that often what we're afraid of isn't what happens. And that when something else happens, our fear will show up to help us take right action in that moment, right? So it's not like you need to be planning in advance and trying to control and navigate and have everything all perfect so that nothing bad happens. It's like, whatever you're afraid of, ask what your desire is. and recognize that true fear, listen to it because it will have you take a very specific action. All right, I hope that's been helpful. I will love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I will love to hear what other topics you'd like to hear more of. And thanks for being here with me. If you'd like, you can subscribe to my channel. I'll be having more videos out is the plan. And I wish you a wonderful day. Thanks again. Bye.